Gentlemen, I'd like to call to order the special meeting for January 24, 2023 for the City Council. And roll call and posting of the agenda.
Mayor Zaragoza,
Here?
Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Here.
Councilmember Perillo,
Here.
Councilmember Basua,
Here.
Councilmember Turan,
Here.
Councilmember Madrigal.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay,
We have a
virtual.
quorum. The agenda for this meeting was posted at the City Hall Bulletin Board on January 17th, 2023. Thank you.
And we're going to take a moment of silence for all the individuals that we've lost across the United States, the mass attacks on our citizens. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Our next item is public comments not on the agenda. Do we have any speakers either virtually or in the chamber?
Mayor, just to clarify, this is a special meeting, so the only public comments are for items that are on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. So any speakers for items, on this agenda item, whether virtually or here?
Mayor Zaragoza, there's no speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, thank you. So our next item is item C, C1. And this is City Manager Department. Subject is ratification of severe storm emergency proclamation. The recommendation of the City Council adopt a resolution ratifying the proclamation of the Director of Emergency Services of the City of Oxnard proclaiming the existence of a local emergency. And we have City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. So there was no presentation for this item. The staff report is pretty much what you need to know on this. Essentially, this is a required action to ratify what the city manager, as the Director of Emergency Services, did following the city's response to the severe storm events from the past few weeks. And we have the fire chief and the chief of police and the public works director here to explain what those responses were that drew on city resources. In response to the storm events, there was both a governor proclamation of a state of emergency as well as a presidential declaration of a state of emergency for the state of California that enabled the city's access to certain funding from the state and the federal government. So what we're doing now is more of a housekeeping measure to enable the city to pursue those funds, pursue that reimbursement. So that's the extent of why we had to call this special meeting tonight.
And that's pretty significant that we get reimbursed for those
Correct.
And my understanding is that, 75% from the feds and 75% from California? Chief Hamilton, go ahead.
Mayor, you are correct. So this proclamation will allow us to apply for reimbursement for emergency protective measures and for debris removal. There may be some other reimbursements down the line, but specific to your question, yeah, the federal government will reimburse us 75% of our costs, and then the state government will pick up 75% of that remaining 25%. So ultimately, we will receive about 96% of our costs reimbursed.
Fantastic, thank you so much. Chief Benitez, like to share anything on this item before then?
Actually, nothing significant to add to this item. They've covered it well. We had a very modest upstaffing during the storm.
Okay, thank you. And, Mr. Public Works Director, Mr. Wolf?
Good evening. The only thing I'll add is that we certainly, from a Public Works perspective, had some additional cost for staffing, standby, and then also the debris removal, which we are still working on, so.
And I'd like to mention too, as mentioned earlier too, I just want to thank our first responders, our firefighters, our police officers, and public works personnel, and all our staff that really helped us out with this storm. I know we're kind of fortunate compared to other cities, but we were there, to protect the community and to the safety of all the residents. And also, I understand that the EOC was open, and I think our city managers are a person there, so I think it's important that the people understand that they were protected. I know it rained tremendously, and we had, 9 or 10 storms in a row. And my understanding too, Chief, that apparently we're getting some more rain this coming weekend too, is my understanding.
We're watching the weather forecast closely, and so there is a potential for us to get some rain, but the storm may skip by us, so we're waiting to see. But I just wanted to touch on one of the things I didn't mention in my comments earlier, but as I think the council is aware, we did add additional staff, including a specialised swiftwater rescue team and an additional engine company. Ultimately, those resources were utilised a lot, not only here in the city, but also around the county. Ultimately, the swiftwater rescue team participated in 36 rescue of 36 different people from various floodwaters around the county, including a county engine company, which gives us a good amount of boasting rights over there. I met with the captain that was on that county engine. He was very appreciative of the assistance and a little bit sheepish too. So, but ultimately, I think we did. Thankfully, no lives were lost. There were some, unfortunately, some reckless behaviours, but we were ultimately able to get all those people out of harm's way. And so I think, as you mentioned, I think we got quite lucky in terms of the amount of damage wasn't as bad as it could have been, and certainly we had no loss of life.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to compliment all of our staff I know we had staff out working the streets during all those events, and I think for that reason, we were able to quickly respond to whatever we needed to be at. And hats off to the public safety people, especially the ones, it's miserable enough having to work in the rain, but then having to get dipped out of a helicopter into the rain to help people come out of the river and things like that is probably even more miserable. It's certainly not a job that I would relish, but I appreciate all the people that do that and put their lives on the line for the safety of the community. So thank you to everyone that got out there and did that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Peralta?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the report. I echo the comments that my fellow council members have made. I represent District 1, and there were a couple of areas in District 1 that were of concern. One area adjacent to District 1 is the river, and you've addressed that. It is amazing, even with where my home is, I can hear the helicopters go by with the loudspeakers telling people to get out. Some people either obstinate or they don't understand, they don't get out. But the points I'd like to make, I do appreciate all the work Public Works has done and the fire department. I've seen firsthand the fire department have to go into areas that sometimes are called private property. But Victoria Estates experienced again a tremendous flooding event in one area of that. I don't know if there was home damage, but I do know that when I drove in there, I was like, boy, if I get stuck here, I'm like, it wasn't the brightest idea, even driving a Subaru. But I know that water and the people that were there concerned about it have some real questions. Mandalay Beach Road, there's been an issue with sand coming on the road. The Public Works Department has done one hell of a job keeping that clean, the people keeping the drains clean, and throughout the city of Oxnard. With respect to my residents, not just in District 1, it is amazing to see how people forget how to drive when they start to close roads for public safety. When Victoria and Ventura Road you would think that they were speaking some foreign language, they were in a different world, and the courtesy goes right out the window. So good job. Ladies and gentlemen, it could always be worse. And one thing, Mayor, if I can, on today's front page of the Star, there's a story about the budgets and the opportunity for the local floodplain assistance program and potentially getting more impact into the levees. Because if you drive across the Santa Clara River, you can see, I consider myself an environmentalist, but you can see what happens when the river is allowed to build up with brush, the amount of damage it happens, and all the trash that other people, some people would call it just environmental, others would call it pigs, that dump in creeks and in rivers, and it all comes down on the local beaches. But that stuff, when it's floating, is tremendously dangerous. And the people behind the district that I represent and Councilmember Madrigal, District 1 and 2, SCR Levy 3 and 1, they are concerned that these issues get addressed. What can we do? They're not asking you to fix it, but they're gonna be asking us. And we need to work together, hopefully, to light a fire underneath state legislators if rules gotta be changed, that the fire is built big enough to get them to act. Thank you, Mayor, for that.
Thank you. Council members? Okay, so I want to thank you and our residents. We are in good hands. First responders, thank you so much for your good work. So we have, okay, the recommendation is that the City Council adopt a resolution ratifying the proclamation of the Emergency Director Services, the City of Oxnard, proclaiming the existence of a local emergency.
I'll second it.
Okay, that's first by Councilman Basua, second by Councilman Perrello. Roll call.
Councilmember Madrigal,
Aye.
Yes.
Councilmember Turan,
Yes.
Councilmember Basua,
Aye.
Councilmember Perrello, Mayor Pro Tem McDonald,
Aye.
Mayor Zaragoza.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you so much, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all for making yourselves available for this at the last minute.
Thank you.
I was gonna say the bill is in the mail.